Hello and welcome back to Offroad Outlaws, y'all. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about how you honestly don't need a really crazy suspension setup in order to make your way through some of the hardest trails you can find. And while absolutely there are going to be limits to the capability of a setup like this, at the end of the day, it's actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk y'all through everything that I did to build the truck as well as the setup. And honestly, hopefully take a little bit of that extra complication out of the build process. And honestly, hopefully get some of y'all into a fun and enjoyable truck even quicker than you may have gotten there before. And as you may have noticed in the beginning of the video, we're not using anything super crazy in terms of suspension setup underneath the truck. We're actually just using the standard leaf springs. All we did was we took the factory provided setup, or rather, I don't even know would you call that factory provided? I don't know. I guess I'll just call it stock. We took the stock setup, converted it over to the heavy duty version of the same setup, and then we just tuned it from there, and the tune is extremely simple. And it actually really impressed me as to its overall capabilities once we got it out into some rocks. I also didn't necessarily have a particular reason for picking the first gen as our particular chassis for this build. I just figured that the first gen would be a little bit better than one of the shorter wheelbase trucks, specifically because I've really been enjoying building longer wheelbase crawlers in Offroad Outlaws lately, because I find that the longer wheelbase trucks are, honestly, when it gets into really gnarly stuff and you're going up extremely steep hills, they're easier to drive. And it turns an experience of constantly having to worry about doing backflips into an experience where you can kind of chill and cruise through even really difficult trails and just honestly like hang out in multiplayer with your friends and just enjoy the overall experience. And if you do want to build one of the shorter wheelbase trucks, I mean, that's fine. I'm sure that this setup will somewhat translate over to those trucks. You just may have to mess a little bit more with the stiffness as well as the damping setup, and then do some of your own testing because this is more of a long wheelbase targeted setup for sure. But as we go through the overall setup, feel free to copy all of the settings as a baseline as far as suspension tunes and stuff like that goes. And then of course, after this, I'll also show you all the gearing, because the gearing, I specifically wanted to make it ultra short because this is just going to be a crawler rig. It's not meant to do literally anything else. And when you build a crawler rig like that, honestly, I just like to take my regular gears and make them not necessarily as short as possible, but short within reason, so I have to spend as little time as necessary in low range. And not that I don't like spending time with the truck in low range. I think it just makes it even simpler still to drive if you just have to worry about switching ranges a little bit less than you might have had to before. And also, I wanted to make sure that I left the tires at a radius of 1.0. So they're at a stock size in terms of the radius. They're just a little bit wider because I wanted a little bit more of a contact patch, but you don't necessarily have to do that. And when it finally came time to test out the suspension, I wasn't expecting all that much. And then I realized how much it was genuinely able to flex out. And I'm not going to lie, I was pretty mind blown considering the fact that this is just the base leaf spring setup. And you could play with the dynamics of the tune a little bit more if you wanted to, but I decided to go ahead and move right on to the gearing setup because after seeing how it did on both the drop test as well as the flex test, I was like, yeah, this is pretty much ready to take it out into the rocks. And honestly, after that, all we had to do, like I said before, was just get the gearing all dialed in. Now, once the gearing was good to go, it just needed a couple of touches in terms of visuals. And while we were doing the visuals, I do want to talk about a couple of other things, although do make sure you run these tires. I mean, you can run whatever tires you want. However, these are going to be the ones that will get you the best overall results on the rocks. First of all, I do want to say thank y'all so much for all of the suggestions and input that y'all have been leaving on some of the Offroad Outlaws future update suggestion videos recently, because I've been getting a lot of really good suggestions, and we will definitely be doing another update suggestions video pretty soon with a lot more of y'all's comments in it. And of course, we're not going to talk about them too much in this video because they're not the focus of this video. However, I did want to go ahead and extend that thank you to y'all, because a lot of those suggestions are things that I never personally thought of, and they're not necessarily things that I would have ever thought of. So it really opens my eyes a lot as to a lot of the different perspectives that people in the community around this game have. Because again, some people want certain maps, and then other people want certain vehicles, and then other people want specific add-ons, and it just goes honestly on and on and on and on. And it almost makes you wonder if they could just kind of keep going forever as far as things that a community wants. Because honestly, you could probably ask almost any game's overall community, and they will be able to give you a nearly endless list as to features that they want added to a game, or updates that they want made, or changes that they would like to see. Because I think a lot of the various aspects of maintaining a good community around a game, especially a game that is so heavily rooted in freedom of customization around especially a lot of your trucks, there's always going to be extra features that people want. But then again, if a developer keeps adding those things, or at least adding as many of them as the game itself can handle, honestly, you're just going to get a game that continues to evolve and evolve and evolve. However, back to the truck itself, I honestly didn't really have the time to do any custom paint work or any custom stickers on this truck, because I really wanted to not waste any more time in the shop and make sure I got it out on the trail as quickly as possible. Now, not that, spending customization is a quote-unquote waste of time, but honestly, it was more along the lines of I just wanted to feel like what this truck was like to drive, because I was overall just really excited to test it out, because I've honestly spent so much time using a lot of the higher level suspensions, because there was definitely a part of me that was like, oh no, you need these, especially if you're doing a really, really gnarly map. And then I was like, why not just try one of the base level ones and build it out all the way and see how far you can push it? And now it's finally time to go ahead and get into the actual gameplay, the actual map, the actual driving, because apparently that's what some people do in this game when they're not building trucks. I don't know, they drive them sometimes. But all jokes aside, I didn't really know what to expect when going into this. I almost expected that it was going to be kind of good, but not as good as I was hoping for. But it was honestly better. It actually performed super well up the first hill. I didn't even have to remotely touch the range selector. I was like, we'll probably need low range for a little bit of this. Honestly, we didn't even need it remotely at all. And the truck was able to do even little rotations on the rocks, which normally you can only do in low range. It was able to do them in just high. Now, obviously, if you paid attention to the gear tuning that I showed a little earlier, you'll know exactly why that is, because the gears in this thing are set honestly way lower than I would set them for any other application. And when I say any other application, I genuinely mean any other application, because this thing will probably top out at 70, if that. However, and this was super ironic, it was actually a lot easier to drive on a lot of the little precision obstacles, because with it not being as wide or as tall or having as massive of a tire underneath it as the last truck that I brought out here, it honestly just genuinely made the map easier in some regards. Now, obviously, there are going to be parts that are going to be more difficult, of course, but it's honestly nowhere near as bad as you may think, or rather as you might expect, jumping into a truck that is entirely just apart from being, equipped with the heavy-duty version of the standard axles, which you don't even have to do the heavy-duty conversion if you don't want to spend the gold, it's wild. Honestly, the level of capability that this truck has overall is, honestly, it's in a different league than I ever thought it would be in. And if y'all enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments down below if you applied this setup to this truck, or if you were like, you know what? I'm going to take that and put it on something else. I'm going to take it and put it on, I don't know, a Cat Eye or a Raptor, or maybe something else entirely. Maybe something with a shorter wheelbase like a K5. Either way, I hope y'all get a lot of fun and enjoyment out of this setup. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, let me know your thoughts and opinions on that in the comments down below. And I will see y'all next time.